should see Bitcoin on the screen right now. So this actually contains a chart that's updated all the time. So you can come in here anytime, ftmdaily.com/Bitcoin. You can get the Bitcoin news from bitcoin.com, the latest news affecting. You can also do a Bitcoin technical chart. Let me show you how this works. In essence, what you can do is you can come in and you can change the candles to lines or whatever the case might be. You can also click on this button here and get a whole host of technical analysis. So maybe you want to throw a moving average onto the chart, then you can certainly do that. And then you also have, of course, fundamentals and a few other options as well. And so you can kind of play around with this. You can do a 1 hour chart, a 30-minute chart, a 1 minute chart, and you can kind of change those around to your liking. So it kind of helps whenever you're looking at Bitcoin and trying to get some sort of technical analysis on it. Here is coinmarketcap.com this morning. Bitcoin at nearly 4,800. I expect we will see 5,000. Certainly coming up soon. That'll be a pretty big landmark. It'll probably turn a lot of people on to Bitcoin as well. Ether now edging back up closer to the $400 range. Also, we have Bitcoin Cash at around $600, Ripple at about a quarter, and Litecoin. As I mentioned to you the last time, that it's one of my favorites right now. There is a lot of investment and a lot of hype going around Litecoin, and for good reason. I mean, it certainly has a very big future, a bright future, based upon the investment they have put into this particular crypto currency. So Litecoin has been a good winner. We've been investing in that one for a long time. It was very cheap a long time ago, and it has risen nicely. Okay, so let's go ahead and take a look here. Let's go ahead and get out of this screen here. But big moves here on cryptocurrency space. Wanted to point that out. Also, on this Bitcoin page, not only do you have the technical chart, we have some other Bitcoin links. There's a weusecoins.com, as we mentioned before, very helpful. If you want to buy Bitcoin, Coinbase, and Bittrex.com, these are two sites we've talked about many times in the past. Bitcoin Block Explorer, the Bitcoin Knowledge Podcast with Trace Mayer. And then we have a nice infographic here and also a video. So, kind of a nice little introduction to Bitcoin. If you're still kind of on the fence, you're not sure, should you buy Bitcoin if you haven't already? Well, as I've mentioned before, we've always had the same viewpoint on this. We really haven't ever changed. It's just always been, we believe that everybody should have the experience of actually purchasing one, of actually going through the process and seeing what it's like. This is a new technology, again, very much in the infancy. And, we think that everybody should own one. I think everybody should have exposure to one. I don't think that you should use your rent money. I don't think if you don't have any money, I wouldn't say, do that. But, with speculative capital, knowing that Bitcoin could go to $1 or it could go to, millions of dollars, as many smart people have said it could. Bitcoin, again, we've stressed over and over, is quite frankly one of the most optimal and obvious bubbles, right? It's going to be a speculative bubble because the intrinsic value cannot be known. Therefore, it can create all kinds and all manner of speculation and bubbles where, who knows where the price could end up going. So, but it could also go back to zero or to $1. So, always keep that in mind. Don't lose sight of how speculative this whole space is and how early and how the infancy here. And we've also had things come across our desk too. There's always the concern, I think, with the cryptocurrency space that somehow, regulations are coming or laws are coming. And I would say to you that that's obvious, right? Don't be alarmed that there's regulations coming to Bitcoin. Don't be surprised. Of course, the governments are going to try to harness this. Of course, they're going to try to weigh it down. Of course, they're going to try to regulate it. So don't be surprised by that. Don't look at that as something that is a scary thing. I mean, that's just kind of part and parcel. That's where we live, right? Everything ends up, everything gets regulated in this world. So that, in fact, if you go back, many of, if you haven't studied like the turn of the century stock market, 1890s, 1900s, 1910s, where you had guys like Jesse Livermore who were trading in the bucket shops, which were actually kind of like binary options, if you're familiar with those, and the fact that they weren't really even trading stocks. I mean, when Jesse Livermore, who made a killing in the Great Depression, made millions of dollars when the market collapsed because he was short the market, had good insight, was watching the tape. But when Livermore was getting started back in the bucket shops, in the bucket shops, you would go in to a bucket shop and you could actually trade the direction of which way you thought the stock would go. Now, these bucket shops were not able to give you a stock certificate, right? You were not able to actually buy stocks in these old bucket shops. Again, back at the turn of the century when the stock market was really starting to get more popular, but it was still very scary. And a lot of people said, "Oh, you shouldn't waste your money on that," or it's surely rife with crime and rife with corruption, and only gangsters go there. It's the same story we're hearing about cryptos. It's the same exact. I mean, history just constantly rhymes. As we go through time, and so at that time, stocks were considered scary, and nobody should go near stocks, and only the crazy people would do that, and then slowly but surely, it kind of became more sophisticated. And by the 1910s and the 1920s, everybody was participating. And then, of course, it crashed. And then there were all kinds of regulations placed on the stock market because of the excesses, because of the illegalities, because of the lack of transparency, and so on. And so we're going to see something similar, I think, with Bitcoin. If you had listened to those people saying, "Oh, the regulations are coming back in the 1910s," and you just stayed out of the stock market, you missed a huge run-up, right? So my point here is simply to say that history rhymes. This is common. Back in the bucket shops, as I was mentioning with Jesse Livermore, one of the greatest traders who ever lived, in the bucket shops, they didn't actually trade stocks. They traded kind of which direction the stock would go. So it was really kind of akin to betting, right? It was almost like binary options, is what I mentioned earlier. So today we also got a question too, a really good question from Andrew, one of our members on Twitter, and he had asked us a question about, can you trade options on Bitcoin? That was a great question. There's two websites.